WFM with my special guest this morning, Brian Wilson, who is in town working and promoting his brand new solo album. Good morning, Brian.
Hello, Pete. How are you?
Very well. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
First of all, when critics put out lists like this or surveys do the top records of the 60s and your work appears on there, how does that make you feel?
I feel rather honored, you know. I just kind of feel like I'm among giants, you know.
Sure.
Of the industry, and it's really quite nice to be associated with people of that stature.
I asked you earlier if when you hear your music on the radio, if it pleases you or if you...
Sometimes it pleases me, and sometimes it brings back some far-out memories. But mostly pleases me, though, because it's a thrill to hear your music on the radio. You know?
Good Vibrations was an attempt to... expand the possibilities of what a 3.5-minute single could be, wasn't it?
Somewhat, yes. It was an idea of an expansion, yes.
You called it Pocket Symphony?
Yes.
How would you define Pocket Symphony?
Well, what it means is it's a condensed form of a symphony. It's not as long in duration, but it does have movements within it. It has enough movements to call it a symphony.
Okay. This was, at the time, the most expensive single that had ever been recorded and the one that took the longest. Why was that? Can you tell us?
Good Vibrations?
Yeah.
Well, because we wanted to get a record that we thought people would like, you know, that they would be entertained by. So we went in and we cut part of it in one studio, and then part of it in another studio, and then part of it in two more studios. You know, we used 5 studios to record it in.
5 studios?
5 different studios it was recorded in.
Over a period of a couple of months?
Yes. It took about 6 weeks.
You know, there's always been this question of art and commerciality.
Right.
Now, you've managed somehow to kind of hit both things. That must be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Well, my new album, of course, has a little bit for everybody in it. You know? It's got like Nighttime for kind of like the new wavers. And it's got like Melt Away for the older set. You know, it's got a little of everything. You know, Love and Mercy for everybody. Why
did it take 26 years for there to be a Brian Wilson solo album?
Well, because I didn't want to be anything but a Beach Boy. You know what I mean? And then finally, I said to myself, I think I'll try and Dr. Flanagan brought it up to me, Gene.
Right.
And he said, well, maybe you could do a solo album. What do you think? And I said, well, if we do it at my pace. So we did it at my pace, and it took a year. I was on and off for a year.
The new album was done in studios all across the country, yes?
Yes.
Some of the sessions took place right here in New York City last summer.
At the Hit Factory recording studio, yes. And what we did was we shuffled around to different places, and we found the Hit Factory to be a good place. And in L.A., there's like 10 different studios we went to, I think.
Can there be an influence of the studio on the track that you're making?
Yes. The studio has a lot to do with the sound characteristics that you're dealing with. You know, you're dealing with sound commodities, sound, and different studios help reflect different aspects of that sound.
You were one of the first people in rock and roll to take control of the sessions that you participated in.
Yes.
How did that come about? Did you feel that you had to have that control to get the musical ideas that were in your head out on the record?
Yeah, you have to take control for that reason, because if you don't, who will? I always look at it as, if I don't, who will, you know? Yeah. And I go into that attitude of like, well, I will then, you know? No, but it's pre-planned, too, at the same time, you know?
Sure. I mean, you've got to go in with some idea.
Yeah, you have a semblance of an idea, then when you get there, by the time you take over, it's done. You get the direction wrapped up and sealed up in a box. It's like, boom, you know?
Can you recall for us the first time you ever walked into a recording studio?
Yes, we did. The first time was when we did Surfing. And we walked into basically a movie editing studio. And they set up a microphone, and we recorded a record in a movie studio, you know, editing for movies. Yeah. And I'll be darned if Surfing didn't come about. You know?
What I'd like you to do right now is contrast that experience and that technology with the technology that you encountered making the new album.
All right.
How have things changed? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
All right. Well, I like the new way of recording better because it gives you a chance to put one instrument on at a time, all done by synthesizers. Everything you hear on a record nowadays are usually done by synthesizers and guitars too, but mostly synthesizers. That's how I work. And I get the synthesizers on tape, and I have one at a time. You put on one when you're recording the '60s live bands. It all goes on at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, but now with modern technology, you can put one track at a time.
How about specifically recording vocals? Because when the group recorded vocals, you used to do them in live takes, didn't you?
Yeah.
Is that somehow better or not than the ability to take each individual part and record it separately and then put it together at a later stage?
Well, what it is when you record live, you have leakage, what they call leakage, right? From one instrument over to another guy's microphone. That's called leakage. Leakage is part of the sound that you achieve. It's a sound phenomenon, leakage.
Right.
Like the bass might go into one of the guitarist's microphones too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the guitarist might leak over into the bass's amp, so they get a leakage in each other's instrument amplifiers. You know?
Right.
So that's like one thing that is where you can get a pretty much of a little. It's not a better sound, so to speak. It's just it's interesting. You know what I mean?
Different.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah. But with this new technology thing, I like it better because you can combine anything with anything, you know, in the mix when you mix it down in the final mix when it goes from 48 or 24 track down to 2 track.
As someone who in the past totally controlled their sessions, was it difficult for you to give up some of that control to other people in the process of making the new music?
No, because I was right on the spot with them. See, I was right on the spot.
Right.
So it wasn't that hard to do that. You know what I mean? Because we all work together, and I'm on top of everything that goes on in the studio.
Right.
So I feel like I can accomplish it that way. You know what I mean?
It seems to me that creating in the studio is a very happy time for you.
Yes, it is. It's a very, very happy, creative time. Some pressure, you know, but that's only because you want to get it right. You want to do it, and so you get to where it suits your approval. You know, as far as sound quality goes.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all a matter of somebody's approval.
This is Pet Sounds Part 2. This is a sequel almost. Do you see it that way?
Yes, I do. I see it as a sequel to Pet Sounds. Because it's the first thing serious works that I've ever done since Pet Sounds. It's the only Beach Boy album that I ever did that was more of a Brian Wilson kind of album.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
What was the inspiration for Love and Mercy? Let's put it that way.
It was inspired by Dr. Landy, Gene Landy, and myself as a collaborative team. We sat down and discussed what we thought maybe was needed in the recording industry, and so we decided that another love message was needed, and so I went to my piano room, and music room rather, and I set up my piano and just worked on it for like a couple days, and I came up with a song called Love and Mercy. It was just really amazing.
Brian Wilson. I mean, that moment when the album was finished and you were holding it in your hands, can you describe the feeling that you had, Brian?
Well, I guess it's like a mother holding a newborn baby, right? It was like your baby. You created that album, and it means a hell of a lot to you, you know, to look at it, to look at the finished product right there with your own 2 eyes, you know, and listen to it with your I only have one ear, actually. I'm deaf in my right ear.
That's right. This album is obviously totally stereo. Did you have to leave those judgments to other people because of your hearing problem?
Well, when we make a stereo, the engineer kind of like is in charge of the stereo, and my executive producer, Dr. Eugene Landy, he also works with the engineer in getting the overall sound and the stereo mix. So that I can't hear stereo.
Right.
I cannot hear stereo. Which I'll never know. I never could, you know. So I'll never know. Just like Stevie Wonder would never know how it was to see.
Yeah, sure. Are you pleased with the reactions to it so far?
Yeah, people walk up to me all over the place. They go, "Brian, I love your album." They're coming out of the woodworks. I can't believe it. You know, people are saying like, "Brian, what a great album." You know, that's the reward right there when somebody tells me that. Of all that whole year of slaving and working hard, then I start hearing people walk up to me, "Brian, I love your album, Brian." You know, a music maker gives of his music, you know. And somebody turns around and they go, "Wow, I like that. That Brian Wilson makes good music," and they buy it, you know.
Yes, they've been buying it for quite a few years now.
Yes.
You have never made yourself as available to interviewers as you have in connection with the new solo album. Are you enjoying the process?
Yeah, it's a little bit rough, you know, because, I mean, you got to stay on, you got to be together all the time, you know. And, I mean, like, that means that you got to, like, be ready to shovel over the stuff, you know, really fork across with the nitty-gritty stuff, you know what I mean? You got to do that.
Have you learned anything about yourself by going through these intense interviews the last couple of months?
Yeah, I learned that I had a lot more to say than I thought, you know. I didn't think I had that much to say about this and that, you know, about the album stuff, but I really did, you know.
A regular little chatterbox here that we're dealing with. What don't you like about interviews? Is it the thing
There's nothing I don't like about interviews. I love interviews.
Oh, that's
I think they're great.
All right. Does that disturb you or embarrass you to see particularly the articles that delve into your mental state and your highs and low periods over the last 15 or 20 years?
Yeah, the high people. Well, here's what happened. We got going in 1963. We're Surfing USA, Surfer Girl, I Get Around. Well, that was 1964. And the high period of our career was when we made Good Vibrations. To me, that was the high period, you know, because it went to #1 on the charts. And what it did was it established the Beach Boys as a more ingenious group. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then we went into Wild Honey and Friends, and you know, and then eventually got just a little bit after Sunflower and Surf's Up. I started slumping. When I slumped over, and I slumped. I just slumped. I couldn't believe it. I went into a slump.
Pressure?
Yeah, I gave into the pressure. I went and stayed in my room, did drugs all the time, you know?
Right.
To just wipe out the reality in my head, you know?
If you could go back and do those years over, is that the first thing you'd eliminate?
Oh, I would never take drugs. No. Drugs are the worst for you. Yeah. Not good to take drugs.
And your musical abilities, is it a gift?
To some degree, it is a gift, yeah. A lot of it is kind of like hard work, and being able to work out these chord progressions and some of these melodies like it's a chore almost. You work hard, and then the next day you get up and go, whoa! You go to the piano, you go, oh! And you just start writing again. You know, the chore and then into the spontaneous creation. It's amazing.
Steve Allen. I'm sure you're aware of Steve Allen, the comedian,
yes.
Author, etc. He worked here for a while over on our AM station across the hall. And because of his musical talents, they had a piano moved in over there. If you feel comfortable in the next hour or so, do you think we might walk across the hall and maybe you could show me what the creative process that you're talking about is about? Would you be interested?
Sure.
I've got 2 things ready to go, Brian. I'll let the choice be yours. One is Little Children over here, and the other is Melt Away over here. What's your pick, and tell us why?
Let's hear Melt Away because it kind of sets the mood for a nice loving ballad.
Let's listen to
some nice love lyrics.
Surf City, co-authored by Brian Wilson. And I think of that Brian as the one that got away. You know what I mean? I mean, here's a talented guy writing songs. You'd think he'd want to keep the #1 songs for himself. And somehow here you were giving one to a couple of buddies. Is that the way it went? How did that come about? How did it happen?
Surf City?
Yeah.
Well, Jan Berry came over to my house in Hollywood and asked me if I'd like to write a song called Surf City with him. And I came, 2 girls for every boy. That was actually Jan's idea. And I came out, so he did the chords and I did the melody. And we worked on it back and forth till way late that night, and by the morning light we had a song all done. The group figured it would be good promotion for them because it was the West Coast sound, you know.
What about Help Me Rhonda? What do you remember about that one?
Help Me Rhonda was it's early 1965, and it was I used ukuleles on it. I never had ever used ukuleles. I've always liked the ukulele, you know, but I never had played a ukulele. I never really. I just told the ukulele players what to play, you know.
Right.
And they were mixed in very subtly. They were mixed in very subtly to the rest of the instruments. But it was a step forward, you know, ukuleles. I Get Around was done more or less spontaneously. It was a real quick song, you know. It's the kind of song that was written in like a half hour. You know, it was one of those quickies where you think, whoa, I got a song here. Can't believe how fast I wrote it. You know, really, really something.
In those days, did you know which ones were the hits, or was it as big a surprise to you as it was to the listeners out there when they got on the radio?
It was a surprise to everybody.
Yeah. What song of yours did you have the most confidence about, that when you were in there in the studio or had just finished it, you said, I know that this one is top 10? Anything?
Well, I actually, California Girls, to tell you the truth, I was more confident about that than any other song.
Do you remember why?
A record. Yes, I do. I remember because when I heard the introduction to it, when it was all done, I said, that is a smash intro. Well, at least I knew I had a smash intro. I didn't know if I had a smash song. Mm-hmm. But I was sure that this intro was a smash.
When did it occur to you that the Beach Boys' music meant more to people than just a diversion or just another hit, that it really occupied a special place in their lives? When did that really strike home and you were sure of it?
Of what? I didn't quite get the question.
Okay. Was there a moment when you realized that the Beach Boys were a really special band in people's lives?
I realized that in 1963, early 1963.
What did it? What gave you that awareness?
That was given to me by my dad, who told me, he said, you guys are getting big. The way he said that, And I just said, I got the connection right there. I got the vibration on it,
It must have made you nervous, too. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that, isn't there?
Sure. And and you live up to your name. Each year you live up to your name.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying, is that you live up to your name every year. You live up to every day, every week.
If you walk down the street, and let's say you're not around, and you mention Brian Wilson to people, they form immediately an impression in their minds.
Yes.
What would you say are the biggest misconceptions about you that you would like to clear up? You know what I mean? In other words, there's Brian Wilson, the pop star, and there's Brian Wilson, the human being. If you had the opportunity, as you do right now, to talk to people and say, these are some real things to know about Brian Wilson, what would you say?
I would say, first of all, please don't think Brian Wilson is a little namby-pamby, because I'm a very strong man, and I must live up to that.
What else? What else would you like them to know about the real...
That I really love people spiritually, and that's why I make music, is because of the spiritualness of it. Uh-huh. The idea that you can listen to a message on a record and feel better for the rest of the day, that's amazing. What else but a record could do that, or a good movie? A good movie is probably my favorite thing in the world, but records too,
Sure, absolutely. Rio Grande, Brian. Yeah. Very ambitious track for the new album, yes?
Rio Grande was another pocket symphony.
Ah.
That's the definition. Good Vibrations was a true pocket symphony, but Rio Grande was like a positive. Positive. What was I saying before? I'm so excited,
I was going to say, you've been doing what you do for a long time. I've been doing what I do for a long time, but I've got these butterflies this morning, and I know that they are of excitement because it is really, really special and great to have you here today.
Well, it's good to be here, on what is this? It's August?
This is August 20th.
August 20th, 1988. What a good day this is.
Yeah.
And I wondered about that when I first woke up. I said, yeah, what's the date today, Special, some special days, special vibrations in the air, a radio show to do, and I'm sailing. You know what I mean?
You having a good time?
Oh yeah, I'm on my second wind now.
All right. Well, we're going to take you to that other studio across the hall, but to do that, I wanted to get into to Rio Grande. I read somewhere that you had to be convinced to do this. Is that true?
Well, yeah. I mean, we all share it. But what I'm trying to say is, I was convinced that we could do something like this. Yes, I was.
Okay.
And my collaborator, Dr. Landy, and also the president of Warner Brothers Records. Can you believe that? Lenny Waronker, both said that they're very positive that this is a possibility of a pocket symphony, a little rock opera. Gene calls it Life's Suite. Lenny calls it Rio Grande.
Right. Were you a little nervous about it?
Yeah, because, see, I didn't want to muff it, you know what I mean? I thought I'd pace myself, you know, because a lot of things were going on at that time, you know?
Yeah.
And it only takes a fool who doesn't realize that, too, you know? Because there are a lot of things going on, you know? And you wish you want to be somewhere else, and you said, I went through that dilemma where I said, you know, I want to be somewhere else. I want to be where he is. I want to be where he is, you know? And I said, what is all this, you know? Nah, I want to be where I am, you know?
Other performers, other artists? I mean, when you say you want to be where he is, who would you define the he as?
Dr. Landy. I've always been fascinated with Dr. Landy. You know, Gene Landy is the biggest, what would you call it? Genius at this business that anybody I know. He's been around in the underground for a while, and he just emerged. He kind of like emerged out of the underground thing to work with me, and he took my life over as a doctor. But then he ended his doctorship with me, and now he's just a really great executive producer, which I feel the world will know someday just who Gene really is, you know?
He is a controversial man.
Yes, he is. He's been accused of a few things by my family. A couple things like misconduct as a doctor, but this is all false, absolutely false. You know what I mean? Nobody in their right mind would ever make a statement about him if they knew him well, like I do, you know?
It's unfortunate, though, that it has caused some dissension with people that are otherwise very important in your life. I'm thinking specifically of Carl at this point. Are relations with Carl in a bad place right now?
In a place. What it is that Carl feels that I'm his leader musically, right? Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want to answer to his big brother. You know, you don't want to be a little brother and have big brother get all the attention in the group. You know, back to basics and kind of pick up where I left off somewhere. I don't know what year exactly it was or whatever. I just want to pick up where I left off and zero into something that I think is going to be meaningful for this world. Because I know that all those people out there that are just crying for a little love, maybe a little attention too, you know. Well, you can get that through music, you can get it through movies, but especially music, because music moves the soul, you know. And that's why Love and Mercy was created, so that we could move people's souls and assure people that they're going to be okay and that things are going to be fine.
Well, there's some of that in Rio Grande as well, although it covers a lot of ground. There's some scary parts in it as well as there are scary parts in life, yes?
Absolutely. And but you said it's scary parts, not the whole. The bigger picture tells you that it isn't scary.
Yeah.
Controlling those emotions, zeroing in with your brain, saying, you know, hey, that's a bunch of hooey, you know? Having the guts to say, that's a bunch of hooey, you know?
When Rio Grande was finished, were you pleased with it?
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was great.
Pete Fornatale back with you on this special edition of Saturday Morning 60s with my guest, Brian Wilson. We were just going to eavesdrop here. We went over to the AM side of the building where there is a piano. And, Brian, how do you write? How do you compose? How does that process work?
Well, it starts with something like, you know, like a shuffle beat. Say you're into a shuffle beat mood, shuffle mood. Well, then you add like... You know, you get a background arrangement feeling going, right? And then you start like a melody could be like, so you have all these ingredients. You've got the chords, you've got the rhythm, you've got the melody, and you've got the lyrics.
Right. Do you hear the finished product in your head already?
No. When I write a song, I write. First, I have to write it. Then you hear the overall sound as a producer. Yes. But as a songwriter, what you do is you write the song first. You know, so you have a piece of material. Then the producer gets the artist. In some cases, like Paul McCartney, he does the whole batch. He does it all himself. Mm-hmm. And like I do the same thing. And you know.
Is there a song from the new album that you can kind of go backwards with? In other words, we now know it as the finished track as it appears on Brian Wilson, your solo album. Is there one of the tracks that you can take back to its earliest stage, where the idea came from and how you executed the idea? What comes to mind?
California Girls. I had an idea to start like this, you know? idea of taking an intro, a slow intro, and bringing it right into the song with tempo, you know?
Uh-huh.
We did that. We thought of that, and it was a really successful record, too.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. But I'm looking for one from the new record. Is there one that you can remember the very beginnings of?
Just like these chords here. Then I had like da 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 da. That kind of an idea. A love song. A pretty, like a spiritual kind of a feeling, you know?
But no lyrics at that point.
No.
That came
Later.
At what point? At what point in the process?
About a month later.
Did you have all of the chords and the changes? Did you have the track done at that point?
No. We did not have the track done when
Okay.
it was done. The track was recorded about 2 weeks after we wrote that song
Uh-huh.
in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Ah.
And it was one of the greatest tracks I'd ever done. I also put on the background voices. See, when I was with the Beach Boys, and I still am in a sense, each of us would have a note, right? You know, and like there'd be 5 notes in a chord for us, because there's 5 Beach Boys, right?
Right.
Well, when I went to Honolulu, I put on all 4 voices by myself, all one track at a time, all of Brian Wilson's voices.
We heard the finished version of Love and Mercy earlier. Is there any way that you could put together for us a more basic version of just piano and your voice? Do you feel like doing that?
What's that?
Would you be able to do Love and Mercy as just a piano and voice piece for us? It's up to you.
I can't do it.
Because, that's okay with me. I just want to know.
It's because it was all done in the studio, and I had never really learned it all at once.
Oh, I see.
So we learned it one by one, so in that way... and a piano, of course, cannot do what an arrangement can.
Oh, sure. But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you get an insight into a song.
Yes.
When it's done in a rearranged fashion. For example, Bruce Springsteen on his current tour is doing Born to Run, which we all know as like a big sound, Phil Spector type wall of sound. He's just doing it alone with an acoustic guitar, and it gives the song a whole new dimension, a whole new meaning. In fact, you did that once. Let me remind you of something that really impressed me and see if we can...
Okay.
This had to be 1967, when just at the point where rock and roll was starting to be considered as a more serious type of music than just hit records in the top 40. And no less a presence than Leonard Bernstein did a special on CBS examining the new music. And he had as guests on that program the Blues Project, and they did their beautiful instrumental piece, Flute Thing. And he had Janice Ian on, and she did Society's Child. And he also had Brian Wilson on at a piano, playing a little bit of Surf's Up. Do you remember that? Is that song?
Somewhat, yes.
Is that song still a special one for you?
Oh, very much. Me and Van Dyke Parks wrote that.
Yeah.
Absolutely special.
Do you recall enough of the lyrics to do any part of it for us?
I couldn't. No, I don't recall those lyrics.
Okay.
It's a long time ago.
Sure. I can understand that.
22 years ago, to be exact.
Oh, exactly. Sure. Shall we call it primitive version of it with just you alone at your piano on that special?
Yes, I remember that. Yes, of course. I remember that now. Yeah. Let me give you another example of how a song is created.
Absolutely. I'm going to climb up here and watch.
I think that, you have... That's a bag, right? That's called a bag. Into like, Mary, honey, how long it's been, I don't know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Where you get a simple melody. The songs that are the simplest go the farthest. You know? The ones that are really simple and direct and to the point, with gumption, a little gumption in them, are the ones that go the farthest. Believe me, I know what I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
Because like the Stones with Satisfaction, that was right down to the beat. It was right to the point, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I can't get no satisfaction, you know, like that. It's just, there's a feeling behind that, you know, a gut response you get, you know?
Do you sit down and say, this is the kind of ultimate product I want to wind up with? Or do you just let it flow out more naturally than that?
I let it flow out a little more naturally. You say to yourself, I have a basic feeling about this song, right?
Yeah.
A basic feeling, a gut feeling. And the trick of an ingenious songwriter is to get a song similar to what he felt when he first conceived of it. You know what I mean? That's the idea. In other words, you do start, you have like, see, God gives you this. It's like a gift. He gives you the gift of you being able to feel something, you know, feel this overall feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you convert it into music, that's the creative process. But it starts up here somewhere in your brain. It starts as a feeling, as an idea, as a feeling, you know what I mean?
Are you writing all of the time? Are you writing right now?
Well, pretty much so. But not all the time, but pretty much steadily throughout 1 month's time. I might sit down at the piano maybe 10, 20 times, you know?
Let's try one last experiment in this area, and then we'll move on to some other questions. Boy, our time is running out fast. But if I gave you an idea, I mean, this happens sometimes when composers are asked to write songs for a movie. You have to watch a scene, and they say, we want a song that goes with that scene. You have to kind of write a song to order. If I gave you the idea, if I said to you, Brian, gee, what I'd really like to hear from you sometime in the future is a song about radio and what radio has meant to you, what hearing your music on the radio has meant to you. What does a song about radio suggest to you that you might want to take a stab at this morning?
A song about radio?
Yeah.
Radio, I got the radio blues. I got the radio blues. Something like that.
All right, I hope I haven't given you the radio blues.
No, I got it.
If you were going to put a jukebox in your house, I don't know if you have one or not, what would you say have to be in there? What comes to mind?
MacArthur's Park, which I thought was great.
The Jim
Be My
Webb-
Baby by the Ronettes. To Do Run Run by the Crystals. Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And let's see, what other ones? Spooky by the Classics 4. I thought that was a great record.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
That's a very interesting list. I'm glad I asked you that question. We'll put all of those together for you as a gift from me. How's that sound?
All right.
Okay. Which honors that you've received touched you?
The Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame. Now that was
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That was quite a night. Tell me what you remember about the night you were inducted.
Well, we all went up there and I read a speech, but when Mike Love started chopping down Mick Jagger, I couldn't believe it, man. I could not believe that he could even get in a bag like that. He would let himself get that load of, just for a little attention, he goes and says, Rolling Stones will play some blues together. You know? I don't know. I can't understand that. You know, sometimes he's a little crazy.
It was unnecessary.
Yes.
It was unnecessary. Can you recall how you felt that night about this honor?
Can I what? Can I recall it?
Can you remember your feelings?
Sure. I was a little scared. I said, I'm scared here to read this speech, you know, and I was. And I was like a real like long speech, you know, like a page and a half, you know. And like I felt so... See, Mike Love took the microphone and changed the position like right in the middle of my speech, you know, and I thought, how rude, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was just, it was something that I did out of love, my love of my heart for people. Because I figured, you know, if we're going to get inducted in the Hall of Fame, we might as well just appreciate it, you know?
Sure. There were some heavyweight people in that room that evening. You were certainly one of them. Who did you most enjoy seeing and maybe speaking to and spending time with at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No one in particular, Pete. Nobody in particular. I just enjoyed that night very much.
Sure. I want to figure out the best way to spend our last 5 minutes together. One of them is certainly to ask you what you intend to do as far as live performance
What I want to do is I would like to get a show together that gives an energy and a love off to people, you know, so that we can appreciate why we're here. See, I want to appreciate why I'm here. And it's, you know, to go out and make this music, you know, for people on stage. It thrills me to think that I could do that in the first place, you know.
Sure.
And we're heading toward December. We think a little bit December or shortly afterwards we'll be on the road.
How will you choose your backup vocalists? I assume there will be other vocalists and and musicians.
So they will be handpicked by Dr. Lenny and myself. And we should be able to come up with something very full and resonant and beautiful.
The Beach Boys have always been your support team.
Right.
There's a difference between being part of a group and a group identity and going out solo, going out under your own name. Is it a little scary to you?
Scary? That's not the word for it. I'm scared, man. I mean, you know, it's going to be hard work, you know. And standing up there just kind of like doing my show is going to be like a real, kind of like a shocking kind of thing. You know, any new venture takes a couple times, you know. Any venture or any project takes a few minutes to get adjusted to it, you know, the first part of it. And then you're sailing, you know. Your brother Dennis once made the incredibly perceptive remark, Brian Wilson is the Beach Boys. We are his messengers. What do you miss most about Dennis? I miss his enthusiasm. He's very enthusiastic about things. He really had a lot of enthusiasm inside of him. Have you learned anything from that tragedy in your life? Just more about the idea that no heavy drugs, you know? Yeah. No drugs. And I want to close and ask you about One for the Boys. Yes, that one was done as a tribute to the Beach Boys, and it was done in a studio, but it went flat. Some of my notes went flat, so we corrected those notes, and then I did it again, overdubbed again, and then we corrected some of the mistakes, and there we were with One for the Boys. Without words, it speaks volumes, I think, about Brian Wilson and about the group. Our voices and so on, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, it does. It really does. Let's listen at 102.7 WNWFM.